If you're a parent, you may have already heard of things like responsive parenting, parental warmth, secure attachments, and good enough parenting. But in this video, I'm going to explain what those things actually are and why they matter, not just during childhood, but for how your child interacts with other people as they grow up. Hi, I'm Jess Kingsford, and here at Happy Hearts Parenting, we help kids thrive through connection, kindness, and contribution. Because right now, more and more kids are struggling with mental and emotional health problems. And yet, the research is clear kids thrive most when they feel seen and valued, when they know they have something to give, and when they know that what they do in the lives of others matters. So, let's get into it. Okay, let's start with the easy one, parental warmth. And it's just what you think it is. It's about the quality of physical affection that a parent shows to their child. So whether there's warmth in your eye contact, your physical contact, in the way that you touch and caress your child, whether there are cuddles and smiles and tickles, whether your voice is gentle and soothing, and your physical interactions warm and loving. Now, these things tend to come naturally to parents, especially in the early years when it's easy because kids are so cute. But it's important to maintain parental warmth and physical affection as your child gets older. When they're 8 and 12 and 15, kids really need doses of physical affection right the way through childhood and adolescence. When they're older, maybe it's just a tussle of the hair or a surprise tickle in the hallway. It just needs to be some physical expression of your continued affection for them. Okay, so what's responsive parenting? Well, this is all about the quality of how a parent responds to their child's needs. There are lots of contexts where a child might need their parent to respond to them in some way. There's the obvious ones, like when a child is crying because they've hurt themselves or they're scared. But there are also the less obvious contexts, like when your child is trying to show you something, or they're trying to ask you a question, or when they're struggling to do something like opening a container or zipping up a jacket. Already you can see how this is different from parental warmth. We're not talking here about physical expressions of warmth and love. We're just talking about contexts where your child needs you to respond to them in some way. There are 4 levels of quality that researchers have tended to categorize parents' responsiveness as. And as this graphic here shows, there's exceptional, good, fair, and poor. And this illustration gives you a good sense of what those qualities look like. Exceptional responsiveness involves responding in a way that's genuinely interested, prompt and relevant, and in a way that's warm, supportive, and empathic. Next, we have good responsiveness, and that's regarded as adequate responding. It involves some effort and some interest. And further down is fair responsiveness, which is half-hearted, and it doesn't tend to involve any real effort or interest. And lastly, poor responsiveness doesn't involve any responding at all, really. And sometimes it even involves reprimanding when a child is communicating their needs to their parents. Now, I always hasten to add here that these are just levels that researchers have identified so that they can better understand the relationship between them and a whole bunch of other things in childhood. But of course, no one expects a parent to respond to their child's needs in an exceptional way all the time. So the good news is that research shows that simply developing a tendency to respond in a good to exceptional way to your child's needs is linked to a range of positive outcomes for kids: better emotional regulation and cognitive ability, and better social competencies, to name just a few. A caveat here, though, is that it really does matter what age your child is. The younger your child is, the more reliably you need to respond to their needs. And when we're talking about babies and toddlers, of course, that's pretty much a 24/7 job. In fact, this is really where the term secure attachment comes into play, because it's during those early years from birth through to toddlerhood that a secure attachment gets established. And everything we've been talking about so far contributes to whether or not a secure attachment is formed between a child and their primary carer. It's the warmth and the loving touch a child experiences. It's how reliably their parent or carer responds to their needs. It's these things that make it possible for a baby or toddler to feel safe and secure. Let's scroll forward now, though, to when a child is a bit older and starting to develop a little bit of independence. Let's say they're 3 now, or 5 or 7. Here enters the idea of good enough parenting and its antithesis, parental perfectionism. The term good enough parenting was coined back in the 1950s by developmental pediatrician Donald Winnicott. And the point he was making then was that parents only need to be responding to their child's needs in the kind of high quality way we talked about around 30 to 50% of the time. Parents should, of course, prioritize high needs situations when deciding when to respond to their child's needs. And again, I want to say that this is not the case for infants and toddlers who haven't yet started to develop any independence. Good enough parenting is also not a condoning of neglect. It simply says that being available to respond to your child's every need, both big and trivial, 100% of the time, is not actually very good for either of you. It encourages perfectionism in parenting, which in turn increases stress levels for parents. And that is totally counterproductive, because research also shows that parental stress actually decreases parental responsiveness. But it turns out that responding to your 5 or 7 or 9-year-old's every need is also not very good for them either. Children actually need some time and space to struggle with things now and then all on their own, so that they can develop some resilience and independence and coping skills without you swooping in every time and fixing things or doing things that they may well have managed to do by themselves if you'd given them a bit more time and space. By the way, research is showing that parental perfectionism and parental stress are growing problems in our society right now. And it's having a flow-on effect to kids in terms of their stress levels. So if you can take some pressure off yourselves with a little dose of good enough parenting, it's likely to be good for both you and your child. Now, I'm glad you're still watching, because this is the most important part of this video. Research shows that all those things we've been talking about positively influence a child's socio-moral development. In other words, how tuned in and available and responsive they are to the needs and experiences of other people as they grow up. It's as though the parent-child relationship in early childhood and what's called the mutually responsive orientation that develops gives children a first-hand experience of what mutual care looks and feels like. So to recap, research consistently shows how important it is for children to experience their parents' warm and loving physical affection and to feel reassured that their parent will respond to their needs at the very least whenever they're in a high needs situation. These are foundational to forming a secure attachment in childhood. But we also know that as your child starts to grow, it's not helpful for parents to be always on the lookout for moments of need, hovering nearby and swooping in to fix things at the first sign of friction. it can fuel parental perfectionism and it can deny children the opportunities they so badly need to develop skills and competencies, to work things out for themselves, and to attend to their own needs all by themselves. All these things collectively help a child to feel safe, secure, and capable. And these in turn lay the groundwork for children to develop a healthy orientation towards others, one where they are tuned in to the experiences of others and where, with a growing sense of independence, they can start to experience interdependence. The sense that not only can they do things for themselves, but it actually feels good to do things for other people too now and then. If you found this video helpful, please share it with someone who you think might value these insights, and check out our other resources at Happy Hearts Parenting to help your child thrive through connection, kindness, and contribution. Thanks for watching. Happy parenting, and I'll see you all next time.